Welcome to Global Tax Talk from Bangkok. I'm Will Morris, and I'm delighted to be joined by Jenny Chong, who is PwC's ITS leader for Asia Pac. Jenny, welcome.
Hello, Will.
So let's talk about Pillar 2, everybody's favorite topic. And in relation to China, not adoption yet, but obviously lots of work going on. So give us a little idea of what China's strategy is on this, and also how are businesses beginning to think about this and begin to plan for it?
So China has been playing an active role in the Pillar 2 design of the Pillar 2 framework as an active member of the OECD Pillar 2 working group. They also have been promoting a multilateral consensus, on how Pillar 2 should be implemented. Over the past 2 years, Chinese Ministry of Finance and the tax authorities have also been conducting a lot of surveys on large Chinese multinational companies on the potential impact of Pillar 2, and also to seek their feedback on any new compliance challenges and the compliance burdens they might be facing. And also they are trying to learn from the pilot jurisdictions that have already been implemented Pillar 2 to see how the minimum tax collection and the administration would go. Also, the Chinese professionals and academic scholars have been spending a lot of time studying Pillar 2 and the implementation, the potential impact of the implementation, with a consensus that the implementation of Pillar 2 in China is inevitable. So I think our view is that China is making all the preparation necessary to implement the Pillar 2, although the timeline and a lot of issues still remain unclear at this point. So even though China has not announced a clear timeline for Pillar 2, but a lot of large multinational companies in China actually are getting ready to face the challenges because they have a lot of companies have global operations, especially those with subsidiaries in EU or APAC that had already announced the implementation of Pillar 2 in 2024 or 2025. I think for them, they have to be prepared for the new financial disclosure requirements and also the future Pillar 2 compliance requirements. So I think for a lot of the companies, management need to be aware Pillar 2 is not just a tax issue. So obviously, you have to be prepared how to gather all the information necessary to do the GIR return or the qualified minimum tax requirements, which is evolving in each of the jurisdictions. So a lot of the tax management is complaining that they don't have enough resources to meet the challenges. So it's not just a tax issue, right? You need the finance people to make sure they give you the data required to do the Pillar 2 compliance. So I think all the companies are getting ready, especially for 2024. I think it's the first year of the implementation.
Thank you for that. I think China's sensible to watch what other countries have done and try to learn some lessons from that. Talking about Pillar 2, as you know, one of the issues with Pillar 2 is the tax treatment of incentives. And China has shown a great deal of interest over many years now in using tax policy and the tax system, particularly in relation to incentives, to incentivize investment into China. And indeed has recently made enhancements to the R&D super deduction. So maybe you could tell us a little about that and what's going on there.
China has been pretty consistent in implementing policies regarding R&D activities. They started to have R&D super deduction at the 50%, then gradually increased to 75%. And in 2023, it's increased to 100%. And for certain high-tech industries like integrated circuit sectors, so the R&D deductions is like 120%. So as you can see that China still put a lot of emphasis on innovation and the R&D activities. We still have the new and the high-tech incentives for high-tech companies with the reduced tax rate of 15%. So as you can see that has been quite consistent over the years, even now.
So Jenny, let's move on from there to supply chain transformation, which is a big issue. And multinationals operating in China are facing things such as EU CBAM, for example, a carbon border adjustment mechanism, as well as tariffs from other countries. So how are companies dealing with that? And in particular, how's the tax function dealing with that?
Given the current geopolitical environment, as you said, increased tariffs between U.S. and China, and also EU introduced a lot of new measures, including CBAM and FSR, different regulations. I think a lot of the multinational companies operating in Asia, including China, are developing, we call it the parallel supply chain strategy, right? So in order to make sure that they have operational resilience. For a lot of companies, multinational companies, for example, they might be considering shifting production activities or sourcing activities out of China to Southeast Asia, to Thailand, for example, and for Vietnam and Indonesia. And also we see more and more Chinese outbound companies, because of the tariffs, because of the very fierce competition in the domestic market. They're also expanding globally to the Middle East, to Mexico, to Southeast Asia, to Europe, and also to the U.S. market by setting up new plants or the distribution channels. I think for all these big supply chain movement, a lot of companies are still considering, do I need to set up a regional hub, for example, in Hong Kong, Singapore, or the traditional Netherlands as a holding company or a sales hub, financing platform. However, as you mentioned, there are a lot of changes around the world, including tax law changes in Hong Kong or Singapore. The introduction of Pillar 2, and also the EU has new measures around transparency, the public CBCR, and also the new CBAM and the FSR. I think all this, the companies need to consider the traditional tax planning, like the regional hub structure. Is this still valid, or is this still efficient? I think a lot more need to be considered in this supply chain move.
Good.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Jenny, thank you so much for joining us. This has been really interesting. And thank you for joining us, and come back next time so that you stay global tax ready.